I was wrong.
Same with me. Next story is, let's go to Kirk Cousins. Had his best games of the season against Tampa this year, which is kind of clouding some of the numbers. We're going to show them to you here in a second. Cousins had 79% completions against Tampa in 2 games. This last week, 276 yards, 4 touchdowns. Remember, he had the monster Thursday night game. Raheem Morris spoke about just how good Cousins' performance was earlier this week.
That was probably his cleanest game as a quarterback as an Atlanta Falcon. And I know it's hard to say when he threw for 500 yards one week, but you know how I feel about stats. But yesterday, as far as being clean, as far as throwing the ball exactly where it needs to go, being able to exhaust his progressions, feeling really comfortable, being decisive, doing all the different things that Kirk does well, you can see the confidence in our offense when he's playing that way and the style of play we want to play.
And for the record, once again.
Look at that. Those are, listen, he's basically chewing up Tampa and laughing at them.
But that's okay. First thing you have to do in the NFL is win the division.
That's true.
So, but again, and Michael Penix is sitting watching this pro win the division. So for the people that complained about Atlanta, Kirk Cousins and Penix, it's turning out as we predicted on this show. Atlanta would win the division with Kirk Cousins, and for a year, Michael Penix would watch one of the great pros, like Mahomes watching Alex Smith. Next year, I think Michael Penix is going to get more of a run. We'll see in camp.
Whoa. Clarify that, please. More of a run?
I think they'll make. Remember, Michael Penix this preseason, they pulled him after a game. They're like, we've seen enough. Next year, I think there'll be more of a real competition for number 1.
Huh.
And my guess is Cousins will win it again narrowly. And oh my, he may have to sit Michael Penix for 2 years. Jordan Love did that. Seemed to work okay.
So Cousins is feasting on this sad sack division. They have 4-0 against the Saints, Bucks, Panthers. These guys are jokers. The problem is the schedule doesn't really get tough. And that's why this argument about Cousins maybe not being the guy next year is tough. Colin, they're on track to win 11 or 12 games.
That's what I predicted.
And
I told you I thought they could be the number 1 seed in the NFC. That was my prediction. They were going to win 12 games.
That's not out of the realm. I mean, they're going to need some things to break their way, like Detroit to lose this week. And again, the Eagles
the Saints are now a tire fire. Saints are awful.
Well, Derek Carr's coming back this week. I mean, I know
they've lost 5 in a row.
You're not
or
the
something.
biggest fan of him.
6 in a row or something.
True, but that again, the late season schedule, like Vegas, Giants, Carolina, 3 of their last 4. I don't see if they're able to get 11 or 12 wins and win a playoff game. You think Penix is going to have a shot next year?
Yeah,
that's just. I know you love Penix, man, but
well, I love Cousins.
How can you love both?
Okay, I had 3.
Is that like you're dating a girl and then you start to realize her roommate's nice too, and you try to date both of them?
I don't do that.
You can't like the backup and the starter. You have to pick one.
I can like both.
You cannot. That's against the sports fans' rules.
I made 3 predictions this season. 1, Denver would be better than everybody thinks. 2, Washington would make the playoffs. And 3, Atlanta would battle for the number 1 seed. Been a pretty good year.
Listen, don't hurt yourself patting yourself on the back.
Did you hear, though, what he said? Because that's the end of that clip. But did you hear what he just said, what J-Mac just said? This is part of the problem.
I don't see if they're able to get 11 or 12 wins, then you start to realize her roommate's nice too, and you try to date both of them.
I don't do that.
You can't like the backup and the starter. You have to pick one.
I can like both.
You cannot. That's against the sports fans' rules.
See? And it's this idea that everything has to be so black or white, that you have to have this firm opinion. The Atlanta Falcons are a Super Bowl contender. The Atlanta Falcons are going to win the Super Bowl. Kirk Cousins is the best quarterback. Everything has to be so firm and black and white. Nothing could ever be in between. You can't say, hey, you know what? I think the Falcons are a pretty good team and they have a shot. Right? And you're like, well, no. They're either not making the playoffs or they're winning it all. Everything has to be so extreme. And yeah, that's like, I'm anti that on this channel, quite frankly. So I always find it interesting when someone like J-Mac or Nick Wright or whoever says the quiet part out loud. Because Nick Wright has been on the herd saying where he's like, oh, I don't want to play the fence. I think it's a cop out to kind of to play the fence or be in between it. It's like sometimes that's the appropriate answer, right? That is the appropriate opinion to hold. But I think it's totally not fair though to use Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons numbers versus some of these lower level teams. I mean, that's what all these quarterbacks do. That's what all these teams do. That's how Dak Prescott has made hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's just not fair. Because if we want to say, oh, look what he's doing against the Bucs, but look what he had to do against the Eagles, the Chiefs, right? Like teams that have, a tough physical defense, whatever it may be. So if we're going to say, well, he's got a bunch of these numbers against bad teams, well, you still got to be more honest, though, than about how he still played really well against the good or great teams. It's just that the numbers aren't on fire, which you can't expect, right? You can't expect that really for just the team as a whole, let alone just Kirk Cousins individually. And if we want to parse this out and play these games, well, then you also have to talk about some injuries as well. Like if you're going to dive into the numbers, the point that I'm trying to make is if you're going to dive into the numbers and parse this out, well, then you have to continue to do it. You have to say, well, okay, well, who else was he missing? And for the rest of the NFL, was he missing this piece and that piece, right? Was he going up against a top 3 defense in the NFL? Like, there's all these other things that you have to kind of parse out and figure out. You can't just say Bucs and everyone else, because that's smoke and mirrors more than anything, quite frankly, right? I don't think it's completely fair to do that. I get it, and sometimes it's appropriate. Sometimes it's relevant. Like, I do think it was a little bit more relevant because for, say, Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, because it was a constant theme with the Dallas Cowboys for the last few years. And so it's like, this is a trend. We're talking about a much more limited sample size. Atlanta Falcons, Kirk Cousins coming back from an injury. Like, it's too specific of a circumstance, right? That week 1 was Kirk Cousins' first game in a really, really long time after he just, had his Achilles tendon surgically repaired, right? Like, it's just too specific of a situation. So I just don't think it's fully fair. Not to mention, when we just look at these stats, Kirk Cousins probably didn't have the best stats against the Philadelphia Eagles, yet he orchestrated an absolute gem of a comeback win versus the Eagles with, what was there, like a minute 40 left with like no timeouts or one timeout? I don't even remember at this point, but it was amazing. And Kirk Cousins did that, even though maybe his completion percentage was like 64% and he only had 230 yards, right? Like whatever it may be. So it's just like, let's relax here. The touchdowns and interceptions is for sure something to kind of look at. I think that is kind of fair and whatnot. But again, you don't know how you have to really kind of look and see how those games unfolded, how the interceptions unfolded and whatnot that. So again, if you're going to kind of parse this out, you just have to be a little bit more specific. That's just kind of my take on it all. But the Cowboys at the Falcons. This is going to be an interesting game for a few reasons, because I always constantly talk about barometer games, and there's never just one barometer game. There'll be plenty throughout the season. This is going to be a fascinating barometer game. I want to see if I can get to the schedule, because it was also interesting. Here's what if you also listen to what J-Mac said, because he was talking about the Falcons and Kirk Cousins, and he said the schedule doesn't get, the problem is the schedule doesn't get hard. That's a really interesting way to phrase that. Why is that a problem? If you're an Atlanta Falcons fan, you're not seeing that as a problem. You're like, oh, that's great. We got more easy wins coming our way. We got the Panthers, we got the Giants, we got the Raiders, we got the Saints, right? Like those are things that you're looking forward to. So the fact that he said that's a problem, it just kind of stood out to me. I find that pretty interesting. Who's that a problem for, right? Who's that a problem for? I wonder. But the Cowboys are obviously not a good team. And to my knowledge, I don't think this game they're getting back a bunch of their injured players. So this is going to be a really interesting game, because now I'm not of the mind that you need to blow out teams to prove how great you are, right? I think you need to prove that you're winning those games and convincingly, and show that you're clearly the better team, right? That's important to do. But I'm not of the mind that you have to blow out teams, even if they're really bad teams, right? As long as you kind of keep a really bad team at arm's length, it doesn't have to be a 42-7 game, right? It's like I don't necessarily need that. That's just the kind of the way how I look at it. But obviously, it's not the best look if you're playing a lower team and you're eking out a win, last minute field goal or whatnot. Then it's like, okay, this team is really bad and this looked too hard, right? But again, it all depends how the game unfolds. You could jump out to a 21-0 lead, and you're going into the fourth quarter, and now they score a touchdown, then they get it, and then they force a turnover or a fumble, and they score another touchdown. It's like, okay, yeah, the game was a little bit closer, but like, was it really that close? Things just got a little weird in that fourth quarter. So again, all of those things can be explained. And the reason why I'm saying all this is because I really, really want to see how this game unfolds for the Dallas Cowboys, right? That to me is going to be a fascinating barometer, because lots of teams have smoked the Cowboys or just clearly showed that the Cowboys were, without a doubt, no question, the inferior team, right? They hung in there with the 49ers for all of like 1.5 quarters, 2 quarters, and then it was just like, nope, right? Forcing easy interceptions off Dak, right? Taking advantage of that defense. They ran like 200 and some yards on them. Like, they ran all day on them, right? The Cowboys obviously getting rocked by the Ravens, the Saints. Like, it was just, these were runaway games. And again, I'm not saying that the Falcons have to prove that they can beat the Lions. Obviously demolished the Cowboys. I'm not saying that you have to do what the Lions have done or even what the Saints did. I'm not saying that, but this is a game where you're going to look for the Falcons to be like, we are clearly the better team. This is not up for debate. There's no kind of dancing around this. We're not going to win 26-24. We're not going to win 36-30. Like, this is clear. Because even this game against the versus the Bucs, the last game versus the Bucs, I saw it and it was like you forced 2 interceptions and a fumble, and Cousins was 23 for 29, 276 yards, 4 touchdowns, a 145 rating. Yet the score was 31-26. And that felt too close to me, right? I understand that might not be the perfect representation of how that game unfolded, but it was still kind of, 29 carries for 129 rushing. Considering how badly the Bucs are injured, that game to me should have been easier. It should have been more easily put away. Especially the way how Kirk Cousins was wheeling and dealing. I mean, some of his throws were just, my God, just absolutely perfect strikes. So that's what I want to see them do. Because against the Bucs division, Baker Mayfield, it's still going to be feisty, right? They're still going to bring it. The Cowboys have nothing right now. The Cowboys have nothing. They're fighting with the media. Jerry Jones is giving crazy interviews. He's fighting with the media, threatening to fire people. Right? Like, Dak is answering questions. Like, it's just, they're in a free fall right now. The Bucs were trying to hang on to their season, saying like, okay, this was an emotional loss. We lost important guys. We can still do this. Let's go. Divisional game. Come on. We're still in this, right? They can rally behind that. They're at home and all of that. The Cowboys, you're looking to rip their heart out. Because right now the Cowboys are like kind of, on the table, barely breathing. So this is the moment when you get to be like, nope, not today. So that's what I'm really, really excited to see. You're at home. They should be uncomfortable. 2.5 favorite, quite frankly, at home against the Cowboys. I don't want to say it's insulting for the Falcons, because I try not to look at things through that lens, because it's just math to me. But it's just like, if the Falcons are what Colin is saying, that they could be the number 1, number 2 seed in the NFL, well, then you beat this Cowboys team very convincingly. Again, you don't have to hang 50-plus points or whatever the heck the Lions ended up doing to them, and you don't have to be pulling out endless trick plays. But it should be very, very obvious that the Cowboys are not on the level of the Falcons. We should not be in the third or fourth quarter feeling, the Cowboys can win this game, or you know what, the Cowboys have actually been playing better. It's kind of crazy that the Falcons are actually in this game, or that the Falcons are actually somehow winning. If it really wasn't for that one fumble on the 20-yard line, the Falcons would be, down 14 points. Like, that can't be the situation here, right? So to me, those are some of the big things that I'm looking for this game. Definitely going to be an exciting game nonetheless. I'm really interested to see how this offense looks against the Dallas Cowboys defense. And again, considering that the Cowboys offense has really not been that special either, right? It's really just Dak and CD. The Falcons should be able to make make their offense look very uncomfortable and Dak uncomfortable. I mean, Dak's been a interception and turnover machine, quite frankly. So there's a lot to gain from a big win for the Falcons, right? Continue to solidify their their place in the NFC South, locking in the division, really pulling away, because right, the Panthers and the Saints have no chance. The Bucks were hanging on, but now they continue to lose. Obviously, the Falcons continue to win. You really just kind of solidify that. And then you do, I mean, you know, weeks 15, 16, 17 will probably be hard. And then 18, you really are cruising to a top seed in the playoffs, right? And some home field advantage games. So it's like this will be one of the more catchier games, quite frankly. So yeah, definitely take care of business. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Atlanta Falcons? You know, just in general, the whole idea that they're only playing good against the Bucks, or Kirk Cousins is only playing good against the Bucks, the game versus the Cowboys. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. It's whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.